Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, and what a show we have lined up for you today. Today we are talking about the one January signing that could win your side the title. Today we debate the Arsenal forward that could make all the difference.
The best player to watch definitely outside the top four.
The Chelsea upgrade that could make them serious contenders.
But I think if there's one thing you can't fault him for, and yes, he does have the odd error here and there, but generally speaking, he is a world-class shot stopper.
And the star that could get Liverpool over the line.
But I think Liverpool have been chasing this role for a while, and a natural number 6. I think Ryan Gravenberch, by the way, has been unbelievable this season. But I do think that he's not a natural in that position. There are games where we're a little bit overrun.
Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, and me and Mikey have a real treat for you today. We are joined by familiar face to Sky Sports audiences, Nubaid Haroon. Nubaid, thank you so much for coming on the Lowdown. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you guys for having me. I came in, checked out some of the boots. I was like, might walk out with a few of these.
Yeah, the ones behind you are always the ones that get
Don't
the
touch
most
them.
talk about.
I don't mind. But yeah, the classic Total 90s. Yeah, we'll notice if they go.
Yeah,
they're lovely.
Oh, they are very smart indeed. And guys, we have got one hell of an episode lined up for you guys today. It's obviously not actually too long until 2025 and the January window opens. And we don't have... Well, we've got a fairly tight title race, but it does feel like a couple of key signings in January for any side could really swing the favour in their direction. So we are today outlining one signing for each top four club. I am playing the role of sporting director, the role that Pete Smith has done so brilliantly in previous weeks. So Nubaid and Mikey are suggesting one signing each for each top four club, and I will have ultimate say. Let's kick off, guys, with Liverpool. League leaders, 35 points. They've got a game in hand as well. They are sitting pretty at the top. They won again in the Champions League in midweek. They are the machine that doesn't stop. But Nubaid, if there was to be a January signing, who do you want to see come in? You are a Liverpool fan as well.
Well, I think absolutely every Liverpool fan will agree that in the summer we were desperate for one man, Zubimendi. I was on the transfer show and I did a whole speech for 6 minutes. I was so convinced he was joining, and then he didn't. But I think Liverpool have been chasing this role for a while, and a natural number 6. I think Ryan Gravenberch, by the way, has been unbelievable this season. But I do think that he's not a natural in that position. There are games where we're a little bit overrun. So Zubimendi is the man that I would go for. He's so press resistant, so good in possession. And I think Liverpool are that one signing away. I know Liverpool are many points clear. Don't know how you guys feel about that, but I think Liverpool do need another player in that position to help them over the line.
Interesting.
Yeah, right.
Were you tempted by, considering the contract situations of Salah, Van Dijk and Trent, were you tempted to go in one of those positions, or were you always just like, 6 has to be the one?
I think I'm greedy because for me, Liverpool are so close to winning the league. I know there's a long way to go, but it feels like the distance between getting both hands on the trophy is actually not that far away because of the control they have on the race. But the control could be evaporated the moment Ryan Gravenberch goes over. So when Konate went over against Madrid, every Liverpool fan was going, we need a centre-back. But we've kind of needed one for a couple of seasons. So they future-proof the goalkeeping position. I would love to think like FSG and try and future-proof the right-wing position or centre-back or right-back. But for me, if you want to win the league title and you've got a real chance, almost like a fake chance, because City are out of the race, I would say. So for me, I think you've got to go and spend whatever is required to get that one over the line.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the name of this show is one signing to win you the Premier League, right? And I do not think there is, I don't think in a million years that Van Dijk, Salah or Trent, leave this summer. I know there will inevitably be talk of Salah and Saudi in January, for clicks, but there is no chance that any of them leave. I think replacing them is a summer business. If it happens, I'm still confident that 2 of those players will sign new contracts, to be honest, even if they're short-term ones. So, yeah, I think there has to be... You've got to upgrade this Liverpool team, and those players, none of them are upgradable in January. So, yeah, I think you've got to go for those upgradable positions. And I think Zubimendi is a really good shout. There's a reason why Liverpool was so desperate to sign him in the summer. And the thing that makes me go against that, though, is just the fact that I don't think any of us could have imagined how good Gravenberch has been. And like you say, Liverpool have been a bit overrun. McAllister maybe hasn't been quite as influential this year as last, but then that's been made up by Gravenberch and Curtis Jones really coming on. I think in the long term, Liverpool 100% need more of a destroyer 6 in there. But when I look at this Liverpool team at the moment, there just doesn't seem to be. There don't seem to be any real areas of weakness. But if there is one, I think it is left back, and this is where you have a decision to make, Dougie, as the sporting director, because that's where I've gone for, rather than a midfielder, I've gone for a left back, and I think Andy Robertson. I still think he gets a lot of stick from time to time, like because he's not quite the player he was. I think he is still fine at left back. Tsimikas also, has been really good when called upon over the last few years for Liverpool. But I think if there is an area where they could gain an edge on their rivals and really consolidate their place as the title favourites, then I think getting a top left back or a left back who's at the top of their game right now would be super, super helpful. And I had two options here. I was thinking to sign within the Premier League, and I was thinking either Milos Kerkez at Bournemouth or Antonee Robinson at Fulham.
Mikey, you're interesting me. Two great players.
So don't fall for this. Don't fall.
I'm going on the charm offensive here. Milos Kerkez, I think, is amazing, and I think he's a real superstar in the making. And I think if we were talking about Liverpool next summer in a similar way to if we need to replace Van Dijk, let's get in, I don't know, Bastoni or someone, or if we need to replace Salah, getting in the next big thing on the right wing, I don't know, Johan Bakayoko or someone of that ilk. Milos Kerkez would feel like the kind of signing for Liverpool to make, and especially if Klopp was still at the club, because Kerkez feels like that, that flying left back. He's so involved, he's so energetic. He really holds width. Imagine him and Trent bombing down either wing. That feels perfect for a Klopp system. But for Arne Slot, I feel like actually Antonee Robinson would be better. He's just a bit more well-rounded. He's 4 or 5 years older than Kerkez as well. He's a bit more ready-made. His tackle and interception numbers are outrageous. He's making nearly 5 a game this season. Him and Kenny Tete have really helped compensate for the fact that Joao Palhinha left in the summer. And yet he's still got 4 assists to his name as well, despite not creating that many chances. I think he creates under 1 chance a game, which would have to change if he came to Liverpool. I think he'd have to be more active in the final third. But having said that, in terms of his actual, while he's not creating tons of direct chances, he is getting the ball into the box a lot, almost as much, in fact, as much as Andy Robertson used to back in his prime, back in the kind of 1920 days, Liverpool title-winning days. So he covers so much ground, Robinson. Like I said, tackle monster. He's got better and better on the ball over the last few years as well. I think he's a really big reason why this Fulham team has finally started to look like a genuine, solid mid-table Premier League club after a few years of flirting with relegation. You look at the performances of the likes of Iwobi, Emil Smith-Rowe this season. I don't think they would be as comfortable striking their stuff in the final third were it not for someone like Robinson backing them up. And I just think him and Luis Diaz on that left-hand side would be really, really tasty. So that's why I've gone for left back. I think, you've got a decision
for both of you.
Okay.
I've got questions for both of you. Okay, Nubaid, first of all, Zubimendi rejected you guys in the summer. Do you think that is likely to change in January? And secondly, I'm a little bit concerned about what it would mean for Ryan Gravenberch, given the way he is playing right now, to be demoted after the half season he's had, where he's arguably been the outstanding central midfielder in the Premier League alongside Moses Caicedo, maybe. So before I get on to quizzing Mikey, because I've got some questions for you. Don't think you're getting off scot-free. But Nubaid, what do you think about those two kind of issues?
I think firstly, Ryan Gravenberch, I watched an interview actually the other day where he said, I've been waiting for this run of games and that's what's allowed me to get to this point. And I think football is really circumstantial. That if that didn't happen, Liverpool signed Zubimendi, we probably don't see Ryan Gravenberch play. But what I do think, jumping on Mikey's point about McAllister, I think McAllister's like the best babysitter in the league, where he's willing to do whatever is required. But I think you can upgrade a babysitter. You can have the best babysitter in the world, which I think would be Zubimendi. And I think you could then advance Ryan Gravenberch, because he's very comfortable in forward areas. And I think that rotation that he's currently using between Curtis Jones and Szoboszlai, that could now be Gravenberch and McAllister, and Zubimendi becomes your staple midfielder. Because I think that's the most important position in Arne Slot's system. The one that can pick the ball up off the centre-backs, the one that can play the passes at the right time. Because I do think Gravenberch's been outstanding, but the one thing that he probably lacks, as Zubimendi's got in abundance, is the timing of the pass. He's got that Spanish feel in possession. He holds onto it at the right time. He lets it go at the right time. and I think he'd adapt to the Premier League. So in that regard, yes, I would feel sorry for Gravenberch, but I think naturally he probably also knows that at some point somebody else is going to come along for that number 6 position because Arne Slot wants the best available player for that position. So that's the counterpoint number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Zubimendi coming in January, is that likely?
From the murmurs I've heard at Real Sociedad, he's not very happy about what's going on at the club because apparently they promised some things that haven't happened. And so therefore he's now sort of saying, I'd quite like to move because the reason I stayed is because you guys made me promises and they're not happening now. Obviously, the internet feels he wants to stay there because the beer's better than it is in Liverpool. I'm not a drinker, so I cannot deny. But I'm sure he wants to play Champions League football. And I think the temptation of going to a club that is nearing a Premier League title or nearing Champions League football and Real Sociedad aren't doing as well as maybe what they should be doing, I think that temptation would turn the head of any player. There's also murmurs about Man City being involved. We're going to talk about them, obviously. But I do think he'll be someone that in January, with his release clause available, a club just needs to pay up and then beg, basically, in Liverpool's case.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you make a good point about Real Sociedad's difficult season. I think Mikel Arteta was such a big absence late in the window. Lenormand went to Atletico Madrid as well, and they kind of lack the superstar striker that they've had in previous years with Isak long gone and Solot come and gone as well. So it's not been a brilliant season for Real Sociedad so far. Mikey, my quiz question for you almost, is Antonee Robinson in January from a club that is flying as high as Fulham? That's going to cost a lot of money.
It will cost money. But you have to ask, similarly with Zubimendi's going to cost an awful lot of money as well, given that Sociedad, sold a number of star players last summer, were not willing to let him go for under 60 million in July, let alone in the middle of the season. So I think either way, we're going to be spending a lot here. Like, we're going for the title here. Like, I think if Antonee Robinson is deemed the long-term future of the Liverpool left-back position, then I think they have to be willing to spend upwards of £50 million. Whether Fulham completely price him out of the market remains to be seen. But I think you've also got to consider that Antonee Robinson is 25 years old. He's not going to get many more opportunities to move to a top club in his career. He is, probably one of the best left-backs in Europe right now. You've got the World Cup 2026 coming up, in 18 months' time in the USA. If Liverpool came knocking, I think Robinson would. I know he also came through at Everton as well, so there's those loyalties would be put to the test a little bit. But nevertheless, I think if Liverpool come knocking, I think Robinson would be in his right mind to kick up a stink and be like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. He has given so much to Fulham so far, and Liverpool should be willing to pay a lot of money for that left-back position. Let's remember as well, like, Andrew Robertson didn't cost an awful lot back in, 2017. Like, they've actually never spent much on left-backs at FSG.
Fullbacks, actually.
On fullbacks in general, true, because Trent obviously came through the academy. So I think Liverpool in many ways are long overdue spending, big money on left back. I know that they may have to, replace Salah and Van Dijk at some point, which will cost a lot of money. But right now, if we're thinking about the context of this season and getting over the line in the title race, I think left back has to be a priority.
I'd love to pose a quick question to Mr. Sporting Director. Where on that pecking list would a left back be if you're losing Van Dijk and Salah and Trent potentially in the summer window?
It's a good question.
Last a bit longer.
It's a good question. I actually thought one of you was probably more likely to suggest a sort of long-term replacement for Van Dijk, maybe. But it hasn't appeared on my desk. I've got to judge it on what it has. And I've got a left back and a centre midfielder that didn't want to join Liverpool in the summer for whatever reason. Where do I think the biggest upside is from a January signing in Zubimendi or Antonee Robinson? I think it's actually quite even, because I do think Gravenberch's playing out of his skin right now. What is more necessary going forward? Endo's in his 30s. Robertson's in his 30s. They're going to need replacing the next few years. Again, it's very even. I do just love Antonee Robinson as a player, though. And I do think he is a very, very good fit for Liverpool. Zubimendi said no to Liverpool in the summer. And that is, I can't get it out of my head.
He won't let you down.
He won't let me down. So on this one, I'm going 1-0 to Mikey.
Oh.
We've got Antonee Robinson through the door. Let's head over to Chelsea. And this is an interesting one because they have signed endless players over the last few windows, and they've got two squads that are absolutely purring in both the Conference League and the Premier League. A huge win against Spurs at the weekend. Mikey, you went second last time. So Chelsea, what is the position you're bringing me?
So Chelsea, this is a difficult one, I found, because in anyone's right mind, none of us should be recommending that Chelsea make any signings for the foreseeable, to be honest. The project is finally coming good. You know, the investment that they've made, you know, as excessive as it has been over the last 2.5 years, you know, it is coming good. Maresca looks like the right man for the job. You know, that attack is really clicking, and I think just structurally in general, especially with, well, Caicedo's performances over the last, 6-7 months, but now, Romeo Lavia's integration into the side and Enzo Fernandez's form over the last few weeks as well, suddenly this looks like a really well-functioning Chelsea team. So there's not really that many areas where I want to upgrade, like right back with Malo Gusto seems to be sorted. Marc Cucurella's performances, I know Tottenham, had that horror first 20 minutes. But aside from that, he has been, absolutely brilliant. Like, everything seems to be clicking. The only areas which are in need are centre-back and goalkeeper, I think. And centre-back, you alluded to it there with, your surprise at us not finding a Van Dijk replacement. I just think January, really hard to find a centre-back who can just instantly come in and make a difference and be an upgrade in a position. I think it's really, really tough, because either you've got to look in the Premier League and who's selling one of their best centre-backs in January, it just never happens, or you're looking abroad. And I would say of any position on the football field where a player's got to come in from another league and adapt instantly to a very, very fast Premier League and adapt to the pressure of playing for a club like Chelsea, where you've got tons of competition as well, I think centre-back is kind of the hardest one. Maybe defensive midfield as well.
And signing top players in January from abroad. Who wants to move their entire family, their entire life over in January with no pre-season, no adaptation for their family?
Having said that...
I was just...
Right. Having said that, look, with Chelsea, with this one, out of all the clubs we're talking about today, I've had to live slightly in dreamland here with Chelsea, because I am suggesting a goalkeeper, and I'm suggesting a top goalkeeper, because I think, that is the one real weak link in this Chelsea side. Robert Sanchez, I just don't think, from the years that we've seen him at Brighton and at Chelsea, I'm not confident that we're going to see Sanchez suddenly get better as a shot stopper. I think there are elements of his game, his ball playing can be very good at times, but it's not super consistent. And his shot stopping's just never been good enough. And, we've seen the mistakes that he's made this season. And, even at Brighton, he never, I think he always underperformed his post-shot expected goals. So, he was always letting in more goals than he should have been, given the quality of shots he was facing. Which it's just not good enough for a side going for the title. When you look at the teams that have won the titles in recent years, we've had Ederson at Man City, who I think, has come in for stick at points, but generally speaking, especially in those peak Pep City years, was superb in almost every aspect of the game. Alisson, of course, one of the best keepers of his generation, one of the best shot stoppers of his generation at Liverpool. We've seen Arsenal become more serious title contenders since David Raya has taken the place of Aaron Ramsdale. If Chelsea want to be a serious title contenders, that they need to upgrade that goalkeeper position. And we're going for it this season, because I think, the long-term plan for Chelsea is to be title challengers in 1 or 2 years' time, not necessarily this year. But we're talking about this season, and so they need to go out and get a big upgrade this season. And I'm suggesting Gianluigi Donnarumma, PSG.
Okay.
Now, he splits opinion. He does split opinion, Gianluigi Donnarumma, but I think if there's one thing you can't fault him for, and yes, he does have the odd error here and there, but generally speaking, he is a world-class shot stopper. I think he ranked second in Europe last year for post-shot expected goal over performance. So
a lot of people watching this will have only watched him recently in the Champions League, and he has been poor in the Champions League for the last 2 years, I think.
He has been, but domestically he's been amazing, and people will be like, oh, it's Ligue 1, but it's like you're still facing top quality shots there. He's his defence has probably let him down a bit in the last 2 years as well, and last season he saved 10 more goals than he should have in Ligue 1. Only I think it was Michel Di Gregorio, who's now at Juventus, saved more in Europe's top 5 leagues. He is an amazing shot stopper.
I think that amazing De Gea year. I think he was at 14. Yeah. So it was almost comparable. Yeah.
For context there, and and that's where you see a massive upgrade there, and it's like, yes, he may make a few errors, but at the moment at Chelsea, you've got an error-prone goalkeeper who's more error-prone than Gianluigi Donnarumma, and is just in general not as good a shot stopper. Like Donnarumma, is a far more imposing keeper. And yes, he's not necessarily, the most amazing keeper in the world with the ball at his feet, but he's fine. Like, if there's
I
one,
just don't get that. Neither's Robert Sanchez. This is what Chelsea fans always come back at me like, oh, we can't play with his feet. Is Robert Sanchez amazing with his feet?
He's all right.
He's okay.
He's all right. But he's also made a few mistakes in that department as well. Sorry, Nubaid.
I was just going to say, I agree. I think Donnarumma's better with his feet than people say, but I think Robert Sanchez is not as good with his feet as people say. Yeah. So the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, Donnarumma in big games, Champions League nights, like we say.
Yeah.
Him and Marquinhos, that duo, they have some issues.
Yeah, for sure. I think you just have to have faith, though. I think, in a new team with a new backline ahead of him, yes, it may take a bit of getting used to, but I think the qualities that you get with Donnarumma, you have to have the confidence that he's going to step up to the plate. And we're just talking really here about the next 6 months in the Premier League. He's not going to be playing in the Conference League because Jorgensen is very much Chelsea's number one in that competition. So he's not going to have to worry about, Champions League nights. He can prepare, a full week for every Premier League game. In terms of a week-by-week basis in the league, I just think it's really hard to fault him. He's been superb at PSG, like I was saying. The only issue, I would say, is that he's going to demand a lot of money, which would break Chelsea's current wage structure, or at least what they're trying to achieve in years to come with their wage structure. And he is, a big superstar name who could, be quite a big ego in that dressing room as well. But I just think if Chelsea want to win the league this season, that's where they make that marginal gain.
Okay, I do have some thoughts on that, but I'll come back to it. Nubaid, who is your Chelsea suggestion?
So I was mulling between a centre-back and a goalkeeper, because I do think if Chelsea are to potentially win the league, then they need to upgrade in those areas. I had a centre-back in mind, and I was literally, in my head, what I was trying to figure out is, could Levi Colwill switch to the right side? And he can't. He's not comfortable on that side. And Piero Hincapié is also not comfortable on that side. So you can't really have two A-side, left-sided centre-backs. And unfortunately, I couldn't find a single one that is available somewhat who could play on the right-hand side. So they've got to hope Fofana stays fit. So then I moved on to goalkeepers, and Donnarumma did cross my research, but I was like, I'm not convinced on the big games. But then I sort of looked at how Chelsea play, and Enzo Maresca last season spoke so much about his goalkeeper being a pivotal part of how he likes to play his football. And where I do think Donnarumma is better than what people think with his feet, I think Diogo Costa is unbelievably good with his feet. And he did say last summer that he'd love to play in the Premier League. He's flirted a little bit with the idea of coming to the Premier League. He's been very good again this season. Shot stopping, he's brilliant. I think he's one of these goalkeepers also that, and I think when you're in a title race, you want to hang your hat on your keeper. You almost want to go, if Wolves get a last-minute headed opportunity, can my keeper come out and claim it? He's so dominant in the air, which I think a lot of goalkeepers normally struggle with when they come to the Premier League. David Raya's probably his best strength is how he comes out and commands his penalty area. Alisson also. And where Chelsea lack, I think, yes, Robert Sanchez makes mistakes with his feet, but he does not command his area. If there's a ball in the air, Robert Sanchez is going to be in trouble. Whereas I think Donnarumma is very good at that also, to be fair to him. But I think Diogo Costa, that all-round package of a goalkeeper, he's really good in 1v1 situations. I think I watched him last season, and I think I said to someone I was watching it with, it's like a baby Alisson, a little less commanding and slightly less handsome, but he's still a brilliant...
He's not bad looking.
He's still a very good-looking guy. But I do think if Chelsea... And I'm also in this situation where I think this is such a strange season. Liverpool could drop off and someone might get a chance to sneak in. Chelsea have to smell blood in this situation and go, we've got a decent run coming now. We could claw back some points. But if we keep having these situations where, and I come to the game at Anfield where Chelsea were in control and Robert Sanchez nearly rolled it to Gakpo, those moments can't happen because that just creates nerves. And I think I was reading Vitinha potentially was talking about Diogo Costa as a youngster, and he was saying he'd never met a young goalkeeper who'd command respect so early and people felt really calm around him. And I think looking at Liverpool's goalkeeper Alisson, or even City to an extent, Ederson with his feet, you feel calm with those guys in goal. And I think you want that calmness in that Chelsea penalty area.
I like it. I think two good suggestions. I think Diogo Costa is cheaper. I think he's arriving on a better note, if that makes sense. And I think the reputation of players when they arrive is is quite massive, particularly if you're a January signing as well. You want fans to be really excited. Look, Donnarumma is a top goalkeeper, but his wages are vast. And I think the fee would be considerably higher. And does he necessarily want to join a new club in January when he's all but guaranteed a Ligue 1 title at PSG? Could he leave next summer as well? PSG, they've lost Mbappe recently. Do they want to lose another star, even if he's not played particularly well in the Champions League? So I'm going Diogo Costa. I'm bringing him in. I think he's been really good for Portugal when called upon as well. Start of a brand new era for them, really. So it's 1-1, guys. It's looking good. We've got Arsenal and Man City to come. Arsenal, 29 points in third. Hasn't been the start to the season that I and many others expected. I think I had them top in my preseason predictions. I think many people did, but that early season form, that run of red cards has left them up against it. The margin for error now with Arsenal feels so small, and I think it's having an effect on the way they're playing. They just feel much less free-flowing. I think they played the best football in the Premier League last year. They look nowhere close to playing at their full best, and this is with a full-strength side back now as well. We've already seen what's happened with Odegaard out the side, so maybe you'll go in that direction. But I leave the floor to you guys. Nubaid, you can kick off. Arsenal.
X Factor wins your league titles, and I think Arsenal lack a bit of X Factor. And I agree with you. I think this season they've been a bit desperate at times. It's been Saka or bust, including the game against Fulham when that goal was given offside. Everything feels earth-shattering at the moment for Arsenal. And it is difficult to figure out where you upgrade because, of course, at back four, it's actually like a back eight now and they can all rotate and play in different positions. And Arteta's bought more than enough goalkeepers and defenders. You look in that midfield and I thought maybe a number 6, but I thought when City and Liverpool are sniffing around and you've got Partey in decent form, Rice is playing well enough, Mikel Arteta hasn't really bedded in just yet. Can you bring someone in to be a deputy to Odegaard? Not really. So it's left wing or forward because I think they need to get more goals out of Martinelli and Trossard, but there's 2 options out there. And then Kai Havertz, who's such an interesting person because I think Arteta's almost going, I will succeed with Kai Havertz. You will respect me. And I think if they want to win a league title, that is probably the area where they need to upgrade. You need to bring in a more accomplished forward, and Joao Pedro for me is probably the best player to watch, definitely outside the top 4. So entertaining. I watched him at Watford when I was doing Soccer Saturday a couple of seasons ago, and I remember saying to my mate who was a Watford fan, he's the best player in the Championship by far because he demands the game, and the game goes to him. And I think I actually do really rate Kai Havertz, and I think he's got a very different set of skills that are useful in its own right. But I think Joao Pedro allows you to start him against City. You can also allow you to start him against Wolves. It will drop in, allow Martinelli to go on, which is where Martinelli needs to play. I also think it takes the weight off Saka. He's a phenomenal footballer. But he's not quite Salah yet. Salah wants the weight on his shoulders. I'm sure Saka does too. But I think you need to loan that weight to other players. And Joao Pedro reminds me of Firmino a little bit. Someone who can take the weight in certain games. He'll demand the ball, take the pressure off you. And I think people will be surprised as to how physical he is. I tweeted it the other day and Arsenal fans were saying for this big side, he's not big enough. But I was saying, yeah, I was kind of saying I think people don't realise how physically strong some footballers are. And you've seen him at Brighton. They ping the ball into his chest and he'll keep hold of it. And I was reading that apparently Brighton only want around 60 million, which I think is so affordable for a top player. So yeah, Joao Pedro for me.
That's a nice one. Yeah, I think his weight of pass is really underestimated as well. And although you say he's not a direct replacement for Odegaard, you can definitely see him playing as a 10 if they wanted to change up formation. Or if they, they've played 4-4-2 a lot this season. He could comfortably be playing a 2 up top as well. So I like that suggestion. But before I have ultimate say, Mikey, who are you bringing to the table?
Yeah, I've gone for a slightly different profile here. I was thinking kind of January. I think the Joao Pedro shout is great, to be fair. But I think there's not too many. Even Joao Pedro, he's not a classic centre forward, right? So I was, if Arsenal are really looking for a clear upgrade, it's you've got to go for someone like Gyökeres at the centre forward position, and I just don't think that's possible in January. And maybe even someone like Jonathan David at Lille, I don't think is I don't think it's a guaranteed upgrade there, at least in the short term. So I actually did go for the left wing position just because I think there's a bit more out there and a bit more available come January. And a few weeks ago, I suggested that they should have signed Alex Baena from Villarreal last summer because of his ability to play both on the left wing and in the kind of Odegaard role as well. I think that's unrealistic given how much Arsenal would have to spend. And again, do you want to be making that long-term signing like right now? I'm not so sure. It would cover that base, but yeah, it feels unrealistic at this moment in time. Same with someone like Nico Williams at Athletic Club, where, who knows, maybe he'll be on his way to Barcelona at some point as well.
Does feel like last summer slightly affected his form as well. It's
yeah,
not
for
been
sure.
As good as the previous year.
Hasn't, although that means that maybe next summer he'll be available for a smaller fee. But I took into account that I know you're the sporting director here, Deegs, but
brand new in my position.
brand new in your position.
Keeping Dan Ashworth warm.
But at this moment in time, there's
no one in charge.
There's no one in charge at Arsenal.
I'm a myth.
It feels like they need to go for a known quantity as well. So I thought someone who could be available for cheaper than their market value in January, given their contract is up next summer, is Leroy Sane at Bayern Munich.
Okay.
Now, he's no longer a regular starter at Bayern Munich. He's only had 3 Bundesliga starts this year. He's only had 2 starts in the Champions League. He's only really been starting recently because Kingsley Coman's been out injured. He's out until January, so he's going to get more minutes on the left wing over the next month, Sane. But generally, he's been used on the right wing. Now is basically the understudy to Michael Arteta. Contract up next summer, no news of it being signed anytime soon. I feel like as a short-term fix to Arsenal's left wing position, which I think is a bit of a problem position, and I know, you have the option of Martinelli there, you've got Trossard there, you've even got the option of Sterling there, but it does worry me a bit that Arteta hasn't used Sterling anywhere near as much as we thought he would. That suggests to me that there's something wrong there, or Arteta doesn't feel like he fits the system that he's trying to play. Sane, so experienced, let's just cross my mind as well. The relationship that he did have with Sterling at City, and obviously had a relationship with Arteta there as well. Maybe they could get the best out of each other as they come up to a really congested part of the season where they're going to need to rotate more in forward positions. But Sane still, on his day, is still one of the best wingers in the world. It hasn't been that way this season, but last year he was putting up, I think, 0.9 expected goals and assists per 90.
Last year, wasn't he?
He was really good before Christmas, but his underlying numbers last season were amazing. I think he was completing nearly 4 dribbles a game, which was a career high. He was creating 3 chances a game. And even this year, with his production down, I think his expected goals and assists would still rank him second to Saka in the Arsenal squad, which probably says more about Arsenal's shortcomings. Bayern's strength in the Bundesliga has been amazing. When you've got someone like Harry Kane to aim for, obviously your numbers are going to pop a little bit more when you've got Musiala in the kind of form that he's been in as well. That's going to happen. But I just think if Arsenal were to offer 15-20 million pounds for him in January, then I think Bayern would potentially come to the table, given the options that they have in those areas now, given that they would lose him for free in the summer. 15 to 20 million, wow. I think.
Do you think?
That's a bargain.
I think so. Well, Bayern may well have the possibility of losing him for free in the summer, and he's not being used all that much. I know with Coman out that he's been used a bit more on the left, but they're flying high in the Bundesliga. I think Kompany would want to keep him ideally, but Bayern are a fairly shrewd. Well, actually, in recent seasons, not so much, but they should be coming to the table for something like that, I think.
Do you think profile-wise he fits how Arteta wants to play? All his left wingers are always right-footed. Sane is still a... To be fair, he changed his role quite a lot, actually, in recent times. But if he plays on the left, he's a byline winger.
Yeah, for sure, but I think that gives them another option there, right? And yeah, I see your concerns there, but I think, again, the fact that he can play on the right means that, you can take some of the weight off Saka too. And ultimately, I think Arsenal need to be more unpredictable going forward. I know it's probably overblown a little bit, that they're over-reliant on corners, but they have been in the last few weeks. They don't create enough from open play. And I think bringing someone like Sane in on the left will only make them more unpredictable. And again, maybe take the expectation a little bit off Martinelli. Maybe he needs a little bit of a break there. Trossard's not been quite at his usual level this season either. So yeah, I think he could add some real bite to the Arsenal attack.
It's really difficult. Because those would be the 2 positions that I would look at as well. Are they do I see Sane being a transformational signing for Arsenal on the left wing? Probably not long term. But do I see Joao Pedro necessarily becoming the 15-20 league goal striker at Arsenal? Maybe, but it doesn't feel like an absolute guarantee. As you say, it doesn't feel like a Gyökeres kind of signing. But, even Gyökeres, like, no one is a guarantee of success, as we've seen in recent windows. Like, about 50% of transfers work out how the kind of level you'd expect it to. Gosh, I'm finding this quite difficult. I like the fact that Sane can cover on the right, left, and it can play centrally as well. He's played well as a 10 in recent seasons. I think Joao Pedro has risen to every challenge that has come his way as well. He was exceptional in the Europa League last year. But it's a big role to be Arsenal's starting number 9. And I think for now, I like the versatility that Sane can bring. But the Sterling question does worry me as well, because I expected him to have a bigger impact. But I'm going to marginally give it to Leroy Sane.
Oh,
marginally.
I didn't expect
I'm
that.
shocked. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The sport narrator says.
Well, I don't even exist. So, yeah. It would actually be, in reality, the two scouts just fighting it out with our right now. So, okay. It is 2-1 to Mikey.
Wow, I didn't
going
expect that,
into
by the
Man
way.
City.
I thought I was really fighting a losing battle there against Joao Pedro.
I like
really
the fact
Joao
you can
Pedro
play both sides, because I do think Saka needs a break.
To be
at
fair,
most
Joao
points.
Pedro can play off the left when
is
Welbeck's
true.
played through the
This
middle.
is true. The decision is final. Right, we're going to Man City.
I mean, Welbeck. Could Welbeck be a shout, actually?
Yeah.
Given his
Gosh,
current form.
should he have ever left? Right, we're moving to Man City. I mean, this is signings to win a title. I think they need something exceptionally to go exceptionally well in January to win a title from where they are, Man City, and the kind of mood they're in. But actually, we'll give Mikey the first go, giving us Nubaid's got a little bit more to do in terms of the stats here. 2-1. Mikey, who is your Man City suggestion?
So yeah, Man City, I think have the biggest hill to climb, don't they? I do still think they are in the title race. I think it's too early to write them off, but yeah, they need to have a January window like no other, I think. And it feels like they will.
When Foden hits his level, like Foden's not going to be this level for the entire season. De Bruyne's going to come back at full fitness. I kind of agree with you. I think, a few wins.
They'll come to the party at some point.
6 wins in a row, it feels like, in this Premier League title race is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. Like Phil Foden, having a very uncharacteristically quiet start to the season. I mean, we're nearly at the halfway point. You do expect him to come good, but it's not really in the attack where City have been faltering. It very much is in the defence. It's very much in the engine room, and that's where they have to perform surgery. It's the first time in well over 5 years, I think, where we've there have been really big noises that like Pep wants something big in January, particularly in midfield. The Rodri injury has been even more catastrophic to them than I thought it would have been, partly because Kovacic has been out as well recently, and I think he was performing a fairly admirable job in his absence right at the start of the season. They are just absolutely bereft in midfield, and that has obviously meant that the defence has struggled too. So I think it has to be a pretty lights out number 6 in this midfield. Now, there are a number of options. We've already spoken about Zubimendi, but I'm kind of in agreement on Zubimendi. I think getting him out of Sociedad right now, I think will be really, really tough, given that he didn't leave in the summer. And I think if Zubimendi is going to go anywhere, I think he would still pick Liverpool. Because I think, does Zubimendi want to go to Man City and then, in 6 months still be understudy to Rodri? Does he want to be doing exactly the same thing that he's doing for Spain? I don't think so. I'm not sure. And I think Liverpool under a new coach is in some ways a more exciting project to join, especially where it's like, you're going to be the main man. So I think he's out of reach. I think Bruno G at Newcastle is still out of reach. As much, he may become available next summer. Who knows? But I think January, it's just never going to happen. And then another option I thought about was Joshua Kimmich at Bayern Munich, but then I suggested him for Liverpool as a right back recently, so I don't want to be boring.
You've been pushing him out to everyone every lowdown.
I don't want to be that guy who's just suggesting the same player every week, because I'm sure I have been that guy in the past. So I've gone a little bit more left field,
okay.
But a player who I think is still going to cost a very decent amount of money, given the scarcity in the 6th position. In the transfer market, and given that every club is going to know that City desperately need a player in this position this January and will be willing to spend big. It's mad. This will be the first time that City spend big in January since 2018 when they signed Aymeric Laporte. Like, that's how long it's been since City
What a
have
signing he was
ever,
initially as well.
Yeah, amazing signing. And it feels like City needs something like that influential in many ways, but also someone who will be willing to work with Rodri when he eventually comes back next season. And I think that Morten Hjulmand at Sporting could be the answer here.
I thought you were going to go for McCubbin favourite Adam Wharton.
I mean, Adam Wharton would be great, but injured at the moment, and or coming back from injury, and I just think that would be. Yeah, that would be really crazy money, right? Getting him out of Palace. But I feel like now would be the time to strike with Sporting. Yes, he's the Sporting captain, and the club have been great to him and everything. But I do feel like everyone has their price, especially in the post-Amorim era, because Sporting are suffering without Amorim in the dugout. So before he left in November for Man United, they'd won 11 from 11 in the league and had won 3 from 4, drawing the other one in the Champions League. So they're unbeaten in the Champions League. Since he's left, they've lost both their games in the league and both their games in the Champions League. So it does feel like an exodus could be imminent at Sporting if they continue to flounder in this way. Gyökeres is probably going to leave next summer, and you'd maybe expect Hjulmand to do the same. Getting him out in January will be tough, but I just think everyone has their price. He's been linked with United and Spurs recently. Of course, Hugo Viana, the Sporting CP director, is taking Cheeky Bergerstein's heralded position as Man City Sporting director at the end of this season. And it's understood that they're already in contact about these things. So could you get some favour from Viana right now? Get his man in place. He was the man who signed Hjulmand from Lecce back in 2023. It feels like the stars could align there. And I just really like his skill set. He's a very physically imposing midfielder, not quite as tall as Rodri, but 6'1", still pretty imposing. Bigger than someone like Ederson at Atalanta, who was my kind of second choice to him for this role. His tackle and interception numbers have always been really, really impressive, especially in a Sporting side that like to keep a lot of the ball, like to slow down play. They've dropped a little bit this year, but his progressive pass numbers have gone through the roof. So last year he was completing 4.3 progressive passes a game, which is kind of average for a central midfielder. Now he's completing 7.2, which is getting towards Rodri levels. And he's now also completing nearly 4 long balls a game as well. Like his long passing game has gone through the roof too. He's completing also 82% of those long balls, which is that's more than Van Dijk does. That's more than his average, which was up massively from last season as well. So I feel like he's got a really good all-round game, and suggests to me that this is, someone who could play alongside Rodri as well as play in his place. Not as big a goal threat as Rodri. I think you're going to struggle to find someone in that position who is, to be honest. But, as we saw at the Euros with that amazing goal against England, he can produce in clutch moments. I thought he was, he was the best player on the pitch in that match. And I know it's the Euros. I know it's completely different to club football, completely different to Premier League football. But I think he's got all the makings of a great Premier League midfielder there. He's played in 3 different countries. He's 25 years old. He's got a ton of experience. I think it wouldn't take too long for him to get into this Pep team.
Okay, I will reserve judgment on that one until I have heard our final suggestion of the show. Nubaid.
All right. I agree with you. I think Man City need to improve in central areas. I think even more so than their back four. Their back four can always chop and change, but I think the problem they've got is they lack physicality in midfield. I look at that Spurs game where it was Gundogan and Bernardo Silva in midfield against Sarr and Basuma, and the moment the team sheet went out, I was like, they're going to get absolutely bullied, which is exactly what happened, which is quite strange because actually, despite Guardiola's side being known to be diminutive, they always have these aggressors in midfield, Rodri or Stones when he drops in there, Diaz when he comes and claims the ball in the air, but they've lost that now. And I think once you've lost that mantelpiece in there that gives you the physicality, the bare bones of your midfield is now Gundogan, can you go and win duels? That's not his game. And people are now almost turning on Gundogan, which is unbelievable because he's still a phenomenal footballer. And almost like he's ended up being misprofiled because of what Guardiola needs. They've thrown Rico Lewis in there, who played in that midfield game in midfield against Spurs. And I thought, physicality-wise, the kid's struggling, which is not his fault. You're going to grow into being a bigger guy. So sort of looking across the market, and I thought, who's unhappy? I want to pounce on unhappiness in January. And Tchouaméni at Real Madrid has been talked about an awful lot about how upset he is at lack of game time. I think when he arrived to Madrid, everyone said he's the heir to Toni Kroos's throne, which hasn't really happened. And I think he's generally struggled with getting on with life at Madrid because there is just so many good midfielders. Camavinga genuinely can play as a lone six by himself. He doesn't need anyone near him. Did it against Liverpool, did it unbelievably well. Did it against Barcelona, not as well, but I still look at him and I go, you're like fine there. Then Fede Valverde is too good a player to keep shifting into right back, right wing, or wherever you need him. So there's two of your midfielders. And then the third slot, Modric is still there. I don't think he's going to be there forever though. But I do think there isn't really a home for Tchouaméni in that midfield. And I think City are desperate for a physical midfielder. And I think people have sort of gone, he's just like a man mountain in midfield. But technically, he's so good.
What a passer.
Yeah, his passing ability. We haven't seen it this season because, like I say, football's circumstantial and his circumstances aren't working out very well at the moment. But I do think he comes into that City side. And when Rodri comes back, City will just change to a 2 in midfield because they do need a longer term midfield fix for Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, KDB, Kovacic. And Rico Lewis for me isn't the fix. I think he's going to eventually play right back and just come inside. So I look around the market and I think City also, when they signed Laporte, like the feeling was they signed one of the best midfielder, one of the best centre-backs in the world at the time. And profile-wise, they got it nailed. And I think if City really want to leave a mark on the rest of the league, you go and get the guy that Liverpool were desperate for. Arsenal, before they got Rice, were desperate for him. And as I say, like he said many times that why is it not working for him at Madrid? Because it was meant to be. He was meant to be the main man in midfield. But Madrid are overstocked in that position. So I would be very tempted by Tchouaméni if I was Man City. Or any sporting director, actually.
Absolutely. Any sporting director. This bald one is interested, for sure. This is more a general point about City. I think it's going to be really difficult for them to sign players in January. Like, we don't know the outcome of this court case. They could, not be in the Champions League next year. They could, I don't know, not be in the Premier League next year. So it's really difficult to attract top players in their prime to join a Man City project when there's uncertainty around so many key players going forward. Like, will De Bruyne be there? Will Bernardo Silva be there? Will Gundogan be there? Yes, Guardiola's extended, but does that still hold true if Man City are found guilty? He's always said that he's going to stick with Man City, but we don't know until whatever happens. And look, they might be cleared innocent, but any player in January just won't know this. But having said that, we've still got to imagine that they will, and they should make moves in January as well. And I think if you're weighing up Hjulmand, who I like, but Tchouaméni's on a completely different level to Hjulmand, I think, right now, to be fair. And I like the fact that Tchouaméni can play at centre-back as well. He gave away a penalty last night, but prior to that, against Kolasinac, it was a really unfortunate penalty given away. But he was excellent at centre-back as well. He's had to play at centre-back numerous times over the last 18 months or so, since David Alaba's had continual injury issues. Same with Eder Militao. The defence has been chopping and changing behind him when he's played in midfield. As you say, there's so much competition alongside him or in front of him, and I think Camavinga's probably looked more comfortable playing for Real Madrid than Tchouaméni so far, but that's not to say that Tchouaméni's not a top player as well. So I think if they're both on the table, you go for Tchouaméni, and I think I agree with you, Nubaid. I think that is the kind of signing that makes Man City fans think, we're back.
Yeah, I think the rest of the league will also shake. And a lot of City is like their mentality and how they look weak because they haven't got much of a mentality. I think you put that on the table and the rest of the league goes, oh man, we've got a problem now. Also, I just realised the third midfielder is Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
Gone. I was sitting going, there's another midfielder. I just can't remember him.
The options are ridiculous. But guys, the show is finished 2-2, but make your own decision in the comments. I like a draw. I think they were great suggestions. But those are realistically the only sides competing for the title. We didn't want to throw in another one just to make it a winner, as it were. But guys, get your suggestions. Leave your thoughts about Nubaid and Mikey's suggestions in the comments. A huge thanks, Nubaid, for joining the Lowdown this week. If people have enjoyed your content, which of course, and your contribution to this show, where can they find you?
Everything is still at Rambo FYI, or if you just search Nubaid Haroon. Fun fact, there is only one of me in the world. You can blame my parents for that. So, just a little Google will do the trick.
Are you tempted to change the @to Nubaid?
This is going to sound so cheesy, but back when you couldn't buy Twitter checks.
Yeah.
That's when I got mine, and like, so I refused to change it. But like, everyone in my life is saying, just change it. Like, you should buy a tick now. And I'm like, but I've got an OG tick.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, but nobody knows. But I'm like, but I know.
Oh, fair
It
enough.
feels good.
Save the $9 or whatever it is per month. I think that's a good idea. But yeah, go do check out his stuff all over social media. And yeah, look out for Soccer Saturday, etc. Mikey, thanks so much for your contributions this week. And guys, we will see you with a very special Lowdown next week. Stay tuned for that. Catch you later.